welcome back. This video is quite late given the immediacy of the fashion calendar, but I wanted to amuse myself anyway and create my first ever video that's more in the form of a video essay. So I wanted to talk about couture in the digital age and whether I think such a thing is possible, especially considering turnaround times in fashion and media are exponentially increasing each year and our attention spans are worse than ever before. Couture is an art form that requires meticulousness and time, two things, and especially the two together, that are a luxury. They've always been a luxury, but now are taken for granted and questioned more in this atmosphere where everyone in the fashion industry is more focused on just rushing as fast as they ever have been. Because of this high speed, there is a part of me that cannot distinguish some of today's shows from the regular ready-to-wear work of their designers, and I've noticed that this has become a popular sentiment across the board, across the internet. I can guarantee that many of these shows are collections that I can show to someone who's 40 or 50 years older than me and who have truly lived through a time where haute couture was haute couture, and they would be just as lost as we are currently today. However, I want to direct our attention to the shows that truly unleashed their brilliance amid this era where time is more and more the creative's worst nightmare. So these are my 5 favorite shows that truly gave me hope for craftsmanship and incredibly impactful stories through the meaning of haute couture. The first collection that I want to talk about is Schiaparelli by Daniel Roseberry, and I think we were all wondering, why was there a horsetail on an haute couture runway show? When I first glanced at the looks in Daniel Roseberry's 2024 iteration of Schiaparelli, I noticed the futurism that embraced both subtle trends of today and a Western cowboyish aesthetic. The collection was comprised of warm neutrals, incredible hardware, suede, snake print, and asymmetry all put together in the classic gilded style of Schiaparelli. I also noticed that when looking at the collection as a whole, it looked like the characters of Blade Runner or Dune were all in a line together. Sarah Mower's review on Vogue Runway revealed more clearly the merging of Daniel Roseberry's Texan upbringing with his concerns of the digital age, or a digital age advanced enough to include artificial intelligence and machine learning. It became clear to Roseberry that what is needed at this time is to tell a true story of what makes creation at this highest and most sophisticated level human and imply what a machine cannot convey. It was truly jarring for him to see that people were rendering AI versions of Schiaparelli looks and comparing it to actual Schiaparelli looks in a sort of what is better, who did it better format. His answer to the difference between human and robot is that we have unique memories, sentiments, and experiences, as well as a collection of references that have touched us in our life and cannot be characterized by some list or archive. It's just by feeling and being in the right place at the right time for a moment of history to have become sentimental or nostalgic to us personally. So retrofuturism was the clear visual route, adding playful commentary toward this environment of robots, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. However, the collection was seasoned with an amalgamation of references that Daniel Roseberry collected throughout his childhood, upbringing, and life experiences. Daniel Roseberry's personal letter introducing the collection was stunning, as he referenced Elsa Schiaparelli's uncle who coined the term Martian and discovered channels the size of the Grand Canyon adorning the topography of Mars. The clever placement of words and embrace truly set the scene of a Western set in space, emphasizing the house's forever enchantment by otherworldly creatures and the references of the modern creative director. As Elsa Schiaparelli was known for unlikely juxtapositions and marriages, Daniel Roseberry further emphasized the authenticity of a creator to pour a handful of unique references and inspirations into a work that then transforms into something completely original. No one else, and certainly not a robot, could amalgamate the same set of experiences into one work because they have not felt it by their heart. Daniel Roseberry points out old world techniques such as velvet and lace appliques as they merge with pieces such as this dress made out of motherboards and technology dating no later than 2007. The Texan-inspired bandana, cowboy boots, western belts, suede pants and jackets, and of course the horsetail merge themselves so delicately within this world of structure, gilded retrofuturism, and Elsa Schiaparelli's secret codes such as the keyhole. Sarah Mower also points us towards historical references made throughout the collection, such as this dress inspired by Elsa Schiaparelli's 1938 skeleton dress. Daniel Roseberry is so attentive to the house's history and finds the most tasteful way to bring himself into the picture. Mower also references Roseberry's love for the aliens from the movie Alien in this look and Sigourney Weaver's role as Ripley within this look. Mower finishes her piece with this absolutely beautiful line which reads, "Haute couture is the last handmade bastion of fashion that still exists, the place where extreme fantasies can manifest because of human skills." Moving on to Christian Dior by Maria Grazia Chiuri, Why were my favorite looks of a Christian Dior couture runway show the most simplistic? Does that not defeat the purpose and the meaning of haute couture? At first glance, the show reminded me of sentiments I first learned about in the documentary Dior and I, in which Christian Dior's response to the 1950s post-war atmosphere was to bring back silhouettes of playfulness and femininity, which was pertinent to a time where people were finally exiting out of solemnity. The silhouettes of this year's collection, although they were stark, seemed to be a recreation of this most fabled moment in Christian Dior's history. Simultaneously, there is an intricate subtlety when it comes to this collection's references to modern trends and points of conversation. The more solid tone looks are reminiscent of the concept quiet luxury, which is something that we are currently exploring through pop culture in shows such as Succession. There is so much playfulness in adding silhouettes that are heavily discussed online today, such as this skirt over pants moment, slinky off-the-shoulder jumpsuit that surprisingly reminds me of Peachy Den, these puffy sleeves, beautiful column dresses, and midi skirts that flow effortlessly. This playfulness, carefully woven into the timelessness of Christian Dior's silhouettes, feels true to the brand's identity and how it continues to exist in a climate of fast-paced fashion. Not all of these looks were my favorite, but they definitely all detailed exactly the visuals and the themes that they sought to express. The most prominent reference to 1950s Christian Dior was the silhouette of the Seagull dress, which was recreated in a stunning moire fabric that served as a moving sculpture as models walked down the runway. For Dior, the intricately subtle craftsmanship of these highest quality fabrics is what pinpointed its definition of haute couture this season. I'm so excited to talk about Jean Paul Gaultier by Simone Rocha, which was this beautiful ballet punk fairy tale dusted with narrative props such as roses that weave their way into the more Gaultier self-referential motifs such as sailor hats, pointy breasts, and tattoo-reminiscent features. Simone Rocha paid the absolute homage to classic and historic Gaultier silhouettes as it allowed her to truly explore the edgier and more provocative side to her own design. Simone Rocha's typical work echoes throughout my memory as a collection of billowing and timeless gowns with a subtle, striking fierceness to them. Layered in amongst tulle and pearls are utilitarian features such as cargo and Mary Janes that are raised a few inches into the air. Combat boots are also seen adorning dresses that are already decorated with roses. Rocha has an incredible skill of being able to toughen femininity without the use of a sultry silhouette, and it's always been incredible to me how a historically girlish silhouette can still embrace a utilitarian punk edge. However, what is gathered from her interest in juxtaposition is that she is interested in exploring the many faces of femininity throughout design. Designing couture for Jean Paul Gaultier is the perfect opportunity for her to explore this juxtaposition through the more provocative and sultry silhouettes, similarly to the way that Jean Paul Gaultier merges timeless and chic silhouettes with punk and play. The details of this collection are so wonderful to look at as we notice the classic Jean Paul Gaultier corseted silhouette become embellished and decorated with the Simone Rocha ribbon. I absolutely love the way that this dress looks with the ribbon that forms a sort of boning that follows the entire dress silhouette. Moving on to this classic pointed breast look, you can see the way that Simone Rocha focuses on tailoring as she brings out the hips in this avant-garde way that's very reminiscent of Gaultier. This same look gets repeated in a more satiny, classically Simone Rocha way in this look here. A column silhouette section then emerges which shows the first sailor hat, which is crafted in a Simone Rocha satin, which once again marries the two brands together. She expertly embroiders tulle with tattoo elements and allows for her ribbon motifs to adorn a sexier, more classically Gaultier silhouette. Her own version of the pointy breast silhouette alongside his is wonderful as we see the two brands effortlessly and continuously merging together throughout this entire runway. These are some more of my favorite looks of the collection. The flowers are so Simone Rocha, and the color of them invites introspection and something akin to horror. This fully tulle moment is so incredible because of how tough the model is made to look, despite being decorated in softness and satin. The collar and the sailor hat, although buttery and sheer, invite clever structure, And I love, once again, the black version of the structured sailor outfit, bringing in puffy, coquette Rocha bloomers. My final favorite is another tattoo-esque look in which tattooed sailor stripes are crafted out of ribbon. After these years that we've experienced these soft ballet aesthetics take center stage in the trend cycle, we're starting to notice a darkness sort of emerge from them instead. What was once a celebration of girlhood is now a celebration of womanhood and an exploration into the darkness and complicated beauty of more mature silhouettes. Some have compared this current trend era to Black Swan, a movie in which a psychological thriller is decorated in lace and ribbon. The same can be said about Simone Rocha's Gaultier collection. Looking through the collection is like watching two largely distinct brands somehow fit themselves within each other like perfect puzzle pieces. Not only are Rocha's silhouettes embracing Gaultier's edge, but her interest in French ball gowns, coquette, and the Marie Antoinette-esque moment in history inherently references his heritage. At the same time, Gaultier has often pulled from Simone Rocha's heritage and has utilized traditional Irish crochet. It appears that the two brands were made for each other in both vision and sentiment. Another thing is that watching Simone Rocha and Jean Paul Gaultier share a hug once the show had closed was such a heartwarming moment that I just wanted to replay it over and over again, and it just gave me so many goosebumps. The next show that I want to talk about is Viktor Rolf, and if it hasn't become apparent enough, I am a big sucker for juxtapositions or marriages of stark opposites. I think the storytelling elements of combining opposites, such as sadness being depicted in gilded sparkles or heartbreak being depicted as the budding blue drops of pigment on a freshly bloomed flower, tell the most intricate tales. When I saw that this collection was comprised of the finished and the unfinished in this perfect amalgamation, I was definitely intrigued. The collection itself is quite simple as it highlights the underbelly of an expertly constructed haute couture garment as it breaks loose into the exterior. As models walk down the runway, the shedding and tearing of the finished product reveals brand new silhouettes and patterns of the black structured materials with their nude interiors and undergarments. A padded and stiff coat, which is a sculpture of its own right, sheds its layers like chipping paint until it takes the form of a slinkier and more fitted dress. Another version of this deconstructed reveals a nude pant to match the nude inner layer, incorporating the sleekness of this slightly more masculine and suited look. A similar process occurs with a wool skirt suit set as it loses its business appropriate look and reveals the boning of a nude bustier undergarment in yet another sexy dress. This next bow embellished ball gown takes multiple different turns of becoming a sexy dress until it is reattached into a more avant-garde and asymmetrical structure, just barely lining up to reveal a jagged nude line. The rest of these looks follow the same narrative of models approaching in progressively craftier versions of the original structured piece. I loved the simplicity of this narrative in the fact that it was a linear story that you could watch unfold, and nestled within its aesthetic pleasures was the representation of haute couture's first and final step living side by side. I love that it's functionally also the story of the girl who's both classically chic and sexy and edgy, all while being literal and transparent about the entire haute couture process. And finally, the viral Margiela moment concocted famously by Jean Galliano and Pat McGrath, creating this eerily beautiful cinematic representation of the 1920s French underbelly. Known for bringing glamour to the derelict, or derelict, as this mock fashion line from the movie Zoolander was based on the designer, Galliano then brings this juxtaposition to Margiela, to France. We were invited into a grotesque and gorgeous scene that is very reminiscent of Les Miserables, as we see models decorated in stunning corseting, stylishly utilitarian overcoats, dresses sculpted with flowing sheers that dance with the model's every step, and a brooding and earthy color palette. The models embody characters sitting in an old saloon littered with, and I love this simple wording by Sarah Mower here, spent drinks. These characters are the gangsters, the prostitutes, the con men, and given the theatrical romanticism of it all, the socialites, the heroes, and those secretly and tragically in love. At the end of the collection, we see a couple very strangely placed innocent looks that remind me of the childlike love between Marius and Cosette that sneaks its way into mayhem of the French Revolution. The models become actors in this moment, protecting the identity of their characters with poise. This can be seen especially in this photo where this person is trying to remain inconspicuous through their fabulous French style. Another detail of characterization and conversation within this world that I loved was the prop pubic hair styled under many of the collection's dresses. This form of wig underwear, called American, was popular during the time period that the show is reminiscent of, as prostitutes wore them after shaving their natural hair to keep lice away. The historic reference is placed in such a way that it is as stunning as it is striking. You cannot help but notice the way that it blends in with the high-end fabrics as their own beautiful patch of ombre and color. It is there to be thought-provoking as it is there to be beautiful. It makes so much sense aesthetically and cohesively within this world that has this overall grimy sense to it, and yet it also meshes itself within the celebration of the body that all of these beautiful gowns and silhouettes create. But the star of the show was the porcelain doll effect that was plastered on every model's face by Pat McGrath. She took the emotional themes of this disheveled Parisian club underworld and brought it to life with a technique that rattled the internet. Every single person in makeup wanted to recreate this look and become part of the craze, giving Pat McGrath an extremely well-deserved historic moment in editorial makeup history. This was the moment that truly tied up the endeavor to create these historically creepy and half-dead French dolls. The addition of her porcelain masked faces truly elevated all of these looks, inviting fantasy into the scene and giving people the reason to romanticize this eerie and sinister world. Together, these two, shining through Maison Margiela, created such an iconic spectacle and moment in fashion history. I am so tired and I did not know how involved this was going to be, but I'm so glad that 3 hours later I've finished talking about all of these points that I loved about Couture, Fashion Week, and yeah, follow my social medias if you're interested, and I will try to do this again a few more times with some of the other fashion weeks that are currently happening right now. See you next time.